Hello, everybody. This is Don Markland with Accountability Now, and welcome to the Morning Jolt, where we give you small tidbits of data, information, and inspiration to make better decisions today. This is a tactical podcast about making today better today. And I want to share something I recently read from the autobiography of Michael Caine. He's the legendary actor. He's a knight, so he's Sir Michael Caine. I want to be respectful there. His book is called Blow the Bloody Doors Off. And he said something there where he was talking about his career and his life and the challenges that he had. And this is one of the best pieces of advice he ever got. It was called Use the Difficulty. Use the difficulty. What does that mean? And he said it's defined as when we're presented with challenges, obstacles, or adversities, and we use them to build us up, to help us grow, to think of new ideas, to be different and better than we already are. And Sir Michael Caine did this when he was a struggling actor well into his 30s and started to find parts that fit his way of acting. You know, he was told he was an ugly, googly man, and he had to find his way in the business. And then later, when he was in his mid-40s and he thought his career was over, and he even considered retiring. And he said he couldn't get any more parts, but then he used the difficulty to transition into new roles, which actually led him to a second Academy Award and into an entirely new transitioned career, which has been very successful for him. So let me tell you some different stories about people that have used the difficulty. And I want you to think about, in your life, difficulties that you have that maybe you could be using. Let me tell you about Yelena Izinbayeva. Okay, that's my best Russian accent of the day. Yelena, she's a former Russian pole vaulter. She's a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, a 3-time world champion, and she's the current world record holder in women's pole vault. And she's widely considered the greatest female pole vaulter of all time. Yelena, she was named Female Athlete of the Year in 2004, 2005, and 2008, and Women's Sportsman of the Year 3 times. She's entered into the Olympics Hall of Fame. I mean, her accolades are through the roof. And let me tell you her story. You know, she started training as a gymnast at the age of 5. She actually trained that all the way into her late teens. But she had to leave gymnast sport. She had to leave that because she started to grow in height. She got as tall as 5'8" and that's considered tall for gymnasts. And so what did she do? She used the difficulty. She transitioned to another sport where height wasn't a problem. She moved into pole vaulting. Now, it wasn't all roses. Okay, no. So she, even though in pole vaulting she started to do well, it was hard. And even though she started to soar up the ranks and do really well, especially in the Junior Olympics, she quickly qualified for her first Olympics in Sydney. This is in 2000, and the pressure was overwhelming. Now, in 2000 Olympics, female pole vaulting, this is the first year that event qualified. And she was considered one of the favorites. But she did not do well. She actually failed to make it out of the qualifying round. So what did she do? She used the difficulty. She doubled down on her training, created an entirely new training regime, and came back in 2004. And in that Olympics, in Athens, she won gold. Handedly, she dominated. Then she would later defend her gold in Beijing, securing her place as a legend in the sport. Use the difficulty indeed. I love that. Let me tell you another one. This is about Usain Bolt. And everybody, I'm sure, knows about Usain Bolt. He's widely considered to be the greatest sprinter of all time. He's the world record holder in the 100 meters and 200 meters and 4x1 meter relay with his team. He's an 8-time gold medalist. But let me tell you about his story. And many people have heard his story as a junior sprinter and him going up and having the accolades and so many people knowing about him. There's a famous U.S. sprinter named Michael Johnson that even knew about him in high school and said everybody needs to pay attention to this kid. He's very special. And as he was this junior sprinter setting records, he continued to get better and better and better. And then he got to his first Olympics. This is in Athens in 2004. Here he arrived with a ton of confidence because he had just set records at the World Junior Championships. But how did he do? He was eliminated in the first round of the 200 meters. He did terribly. And then later in the World Championships in 2005, he again competed in the 200 meters, and he took last place. He absolutely struggled. Sure, he had some injuries. He had some things he was recovering from, but the pressure also overwhelmed him. So what did he do? He used the difficulty. He hired a new sprint coach, changed his training regime. He refocused, retrenched, replanned. 4 years later in Beijing, he set the world record in both sprint categories, in the 100 meter and 200 meter, and not by just a small margin. He dominated it. Then again in the 2012 London Games, he won both 100 meter and 200 meter events. And then again in the Rio de Janeiro Games, he defended both and won both gold in 100 meter and 200 meter games events, and became the only person in history to defend the 200 meters and win gold all 3 times in 3 games. Bolt used the difficulty and became the best he could be. Let me tell you one more. Kathy Freeman. Many of you aren't going to know who Kathy Freeman is or was. She's an older athlete. She is an Australian sprinter, and she was a gold medalist. And she competed in the 90s when I was growing up. And her story is really, really cool. Her specialty was the 400-meter race. And in her first Olympic Games, this is in Barcelona, 1992, she had a lot of people paying attention to her. She was younger, and she was considered to be one of the fastest 400-meter sprinters in the world. And in her first race in 1992 Barcelona, she failed to even get out of the second round. The pressure overwhelmed her, and she absolutely failed in her first Olympics. And so what did Kathy Freeman do? Again, similar to Bolt, she got a new trainer. She got a new training regime. She refocused, and she started to do really, really well. So she gets to 1996, 4 years later. This is the Atlanta Games. And now she's considered the person to beat. But she's got her rival. This is Frances Marie-José Perret. And she gets so close to beating her, but comes up just short. She wins the silver medal, but runs the 6th fastest time in history. And that's even to this day. That's how close she was to winning gold. So now everybody's watching Freeman. Everybody knows Freeman's going to be the next gold medalist in the 400 meters. And now she suffers major setback. In 1998, she gets a major injury. And she can't train for an entire year. She's literally set down. So what does she do? She uses the difficulty. She finds new ways to train, new ways to focus. And as she does this, she goes on a new plan. And in 1999, she goes on what they call the Freeman win streak. And she wins every single 400-meter race through the entire 1999 season, leading up to the 2000 Olympic Games in Sydney, her home country, where she wins gold in the 400-meter. It's amazing. She has this whole win streak because why? She used the difficulty. The reason I share these stories is because they aren't unique. They're stories about world-class athletes, sure, but they're also stories about single parents, business owners, brothers, sisters, friends, and you. Or at least they can be. The trick is you have to use the difficulty. Don't give up. Be better. Fight through it. When things get hard, push through it. Replan, retrench, refocus, and go at it again. Nothing will beat persistence. When it's the water versus the rock, the water always wins because the water is persistent. The water doesn't give up. Nothing can beat you when you stay at it. That's what using the difficulty is all about. And that's what you can do today. If you want more content, first of all, like this podcast. Subscribe to it. It's on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and so many more platforms. You can follow me on Forbes. You can follow me on Twitter @Don Markland or Instagram executivecoach.don or my website accountabilitynow.net and get your own ebook about the 4 C's of accountability. Start your journey today. And as always, check out my company, the greatest digital marketing agency in the world, 411 Locals. And folks, this is your Morning Jolt.